Good morning, everyone. Today I decided I'm going to walk a marathon, but in light of recent events, I decided to dedicate each mile to a Black person that has lost their lives due to racism in America. It's just something that's been on my heart. Let's get educated and let's walk a marathon. So mile number 1 goes to the story that inspired this. It is Ahmaud Arbery. He was 25 years old, and on February 23rd of 2020, he was on a run when 2 white men followed him in a car and then shot and killed him. It took over 10 weeks for these 2 men to be arrested for their crimes. Alrighty, we're on to mile 2. Mile 2 is for Alton Sterling. Alton Sterling was 37 years old when he was killed by 2 white police officers in Baton Rouge. The police tackled him to the ground and ended up shooting him. Sterling was just selling CDs at a convenience store, and the police was called, but it wasn't even called for him. The police were never charged. All right, we're on to mile 3. And mile 3 is for Stephon Clark. He was 23 years old when police shot him in the backyard of his grandma's house. He was holding a cell phone, and the police thought the cell phone was a gun and shot him 8 times. 6 of those shots or bullets went into his back. And the police were never charged. Alrighty, on to mile 4, and this one is dedicated to Antwon Rose. He was 17 years old, and he was killed on June 19th of 2018. He was killed by 2 armed police officers. Antwon Rose himself was unarmed, and he was shot in the back. The officer was charged with murder. Alrighty, we're on to mile 5, which is dedicated to Tatiana Jefferson. She was 28 years old when she was killed by an officer on October 12, 2019. She was sitting in her home when her front door was open and her neighbor called for a wellness check. The officer, for some reason, racism, but he shot her through the back window of her house and killed her. The officer was charged with murder. Alright, on to mile 6, which is dedicated to Jordan Davis. He was 17 years old and he was playing music at a gas station with his friends. An argument occurred between Jordan Davis and his friends and a white man, and the white man shot his car and killed Davis on November 23rd, 2012. The man was charged with 1st and 2nd degree murder. Alright, on to mile 7, and this one is Freddie Gray. He was 25 years old. He was arrested with unnecessary force for having a legal knife. He died during transmission from the arrest to the station. He died due to the unnecessary force the officers used while arresting him, and for the unsafe position they put him in the back of the transportation vehicle. The officers were charged but were not convicted of his murder. Okay, on to mile 8. This mile is dedicated to Michael Brown. He was 18 years old when he was walking home from a convenience store. He was confronted by a police officer, and within 90 seconds of that confrontation, the police officer shot him 6 times. This all happened on August 9th, 2014. Brown's body laid in a pool of blood for 4 hours on the street before he was removed. The officer was not charged. Okay, we're on to mile 9, and mile 9 is Sean Bell. He was killed November 25th of 2006. He was leaving his bachelor party, getting ready to get married the next day when an undercover cop killed him in his car. The cop was charged but not convicted of his murder. Okay, this 10th mile is being dedicated to Rika Boyd. On March 21st of 2012, Rika Boyd was killed at 22 years old. An off-duty officer opened fire at Boyd and her friends at a park and killed her. The officer was charged but never convicted of her murder. Okay, mile 11 is dedicated to Philando Castile. On July 6, 2016, Philando Castile, a 32-year-old man, was pulled over while driving. Castile had a legal firearm that he disclosed to the officer and wasn't reaching for. The officer shot him 7 times in his car and killed him right in front of his girlfriend. The officer was charged but never convicted. Okay, mile 12 is dedicated to Tamir Rice. He was 12 years old and he was playing cops and robber at his park. An officer arrived at the park and within minutes shot Rice twice. Rice had a fake gun and it was reported to the police. When the person who saw the fake gun called the police, he said twice, "This is a fake gun, but can you please come check it out?" Guess that didn't matter to the police, and the officer was never even charged. Okay, mile 13 is for Walter Scott. Walter Scott was pulled over for a non-functioning brake light. Scott was unarmed, but shot and killed by the officer. This was on April 4th, 2015, and the officer was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his murder. Okay, we're on to mile 14, which is Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was 17 years old and walking back to his home. A white man reported him to the police as a suspicious person. The man then shot and killed Martin on February 26th of 2012. The man was not found guilty. All right, mile 15 is Oscar Grant. Oscar Grant was 22 years old and he was killed on New Year's Day of 2009. He was on a train when an officer kneed Grant in the head and forced him to the ground. The officer then shot him in the back. The officer was charged and convicted of manslaughter. Mile 16, we have John Crawford. He was 22 years old, and on August 5th of 2014, he was shopping at Walmart. He put a BB gun that he was planning on buying in his cart, and somebody called the police and filed a false claim that he was pointing the BB gun at people and threatening them. Video footage later proves that he wasn't. He was just shopping. Nevertheless, the police came and shot Crawford and killed him. And the police officer was never charged. Okay, for mile 17, we have Eric Gardner. Eric Gardner died July 17th in 2014. Officers tried to arrest Gardner for selling cigarettes. They placed him in a chokehold and held him to the ground 11 times. During this, Gardner said he could not breathe. Police did nothing. Gardner lost consciousness and then died of suffocation. No charges were set on the officers. Okay, mile 18 is dedicated to Samuel DuBose. On July 19th, 2015, Samuel was pulled over for a front missing license plate and a suspended license. The officer shot DuBose for trying to drive away. The shooting killed him, and the officer was never charged. Okay, mile 19 is dedicated to Jonathan Ferrell. On September 14th, 2014, when Ferrell was 23 years old, he got into a car accident. He then went to a nearby house to ask for help, but the people in the house didn't come to the door and instead called the police. The police arrived at the scene of the car accident, but when Ferrell went up to the police to ask for help, they shot him 12 times. not knowing that he was just an accident. And the officers were charged for murdering him. Okay guys, mile 20 is dedicated to Eric Harris. April 2nd, 2015, Eric Harris was shot by a police officer. The officers tackled him to the ground, and instead of grabbing the taser, the officer accidentally grabbed their gun and killed him. This officer was charged 5 years in prison. Okay, mile 21. Jordan Edwards was 15 years old when he was riding in the passenger seat of a car. It was April 29th, 2017, when an officer was called to break up a party. The officer instead shot Edwards in the back of the head while Edwards was a passenger in his friend's car. The officer received 15 years in jail for this crime. Okay, mile 22 is for Aiyana Jones. On May 16th, 2010, Aiyana Jones was sleeping at her grandmother's house. The police raided the house and shot the sleeping girl in the head. This was in Detroit. The officer wasn't charged, and the latest report is that he's still working. Mile 23 goes to Corey Jones. He died on October 18th of 2015. His car broke down, and he was waiting outside his car when an undercover cop approached him, and it never stated he was an undercover cop. And within seconds, the cop shot him 3 times. The officer was charged with murder and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Alright you guys, mile 24 is Romaine Brisbane. On December 2nd, 2014, Romaine Brisbane was shot and killed by police who mistook a pill bottle for a weapon. The officer was not charged. 25, and for mile 25 we have Akia Gurley. On November 20th, 2016, Akia Gurley was shot and killed by an officer while walking in a dimly lit stairway. The officer claims it was an accidental discharge. Gurley was unarmed, and the officer was charged with his murder. Okay guys, it's my last one, which means I'm entering my last mile. This last one goes to Breonna Taylor. She was shot 8 times by Louisville police officers. She was in her home with her boyfriend when her family claims that police came in and opened fire. There was 20 shots fired into their home, 8 of which hit her. This happened on March 13th of 2020. So this one was pretty recent. Yeah. Alright, I'll update you guys when I'm home.